For some background on this video, I remember watching James Cameron's Titanic when I was 8. Now this video isn't about that masterpiece, but I like to point out that Cameron put a lot of research into making this film. Jack and Rose weren't actual people that were on the ship, but the characters such as Molly Brown, John Jacob Astor, Thomas Andrews, and Edward Smith were actual passengers on the ship. Let me actually correct that. Edward Smith was the captain, Thomas Andrews was the guy that designed the ship. He was a passenger, but he was the one that designed the ship. Even some of the background characters were actual people. See this couple? That's Ida and Isidore Strauss. They're a couple who gave up spots on the lifeboat for others to make it. See this officer? That's 5th Officer Harold Lowe, who searched for survivors after the ship went down. See this guy? That's Charles Joffin. I definitely got the last name incorrect. I am sorry about that. But he was a baker on the Titanic who survived the freezing temperature because he was really drunk. All this just goes to show you that Titanic was a masterpiece because there was so much research involved. This movie was so well thought out that I was obsessed with the Titanic when I was 8 and I'd researched constantly. I actually did a research project on the Titanic 2 years ago. I wasn't 8 2 years ago, I was in 8th grade, but 2 years ago I did a research project on the Titanic for school. I had to make a video about the Titanic. I don't know, let me know if you guys want me to leak it. Now we have Titanic, The Legend Goes On. It was released 3 years later in the year 2000. First of all, I am fully aware that I am not the only one who has made a video of this movie. I've actually seen Danny Gonzalez's video on that. So there may be certain points that I make that are going to overlap with things said by other creators, but this movie is really pathetic. I am going to try my best, though, to not, say the same thing that has been said by all these other creators. There are a couple of instances in this video where, again, other creators have said the same thing. Most of it is just, this is a terrible movie. Yeah, anyway, let's just continue with this. We start off with the scene where the Titanic is sinking and it's about to split. So they're definitely showing us that this is a disaster. Remember this because I'm going to be referencing this later. You can see the dogs crying, you can see everyone scared, you can hear the screaming. One thing that does not make sense here, though, is that Will, who we later find out to be the love interest, it's this guy, by the way, he falls off the ship. So it's safe to assume that this would kill him, right? The Titanic was huge. Falling from the Titanic, that's a huge fall. And if you fall in the freezing water, it's gonna straight up kill you, or it's gonna make it extremely hard for you to swim to a lifeboat. It's definitely it could probably break a couple of bones as well. Because of the freezing water, it's gonna make it really hard for you to even move around. Spoiler alert, he doesn't actually die from this. More on that later. One more thing that I like to point out is that we see 2 dogs here in lifeboats. So only 3 out of the 12 plus dogs on the Titanic actually survived, and we have some information on them. So 2 of them were Pomeranians and 1 was a Pekingese. So they were also very tiny. So these dogs on the lifeboat are not tiny, and they don't appear to be either of the 2 breeds. They look like they're dalmatians. Even then, I believe that the dogs were actually snuck on the lifeboat, by, I think, being wrapped in, blankets or in a bag or something by a passenger. Obviously, you can't really wrap these dogs in a blanket or bag or something, because of the size of them. So, that's an inaccuracy right there. I mean, I guess this is a kid's movie, so I should let this fly, but I'm movie analysis. I don't really do that sort of I don't do that thing here. I'll complain about everything in bad movies. What's with the animal entrance? I can assure you that animals definitely traveled with their owners on the human entrances. Although, I guess that doesn't help the movie's plot, so I'm gonna try to let this slide, but to be fair, the whole animal subplot thing is kind of stupid anyway. How the hell would this car be able to Tokyo drift here? Assuming that this is a 1912 Renault Type CB Coupe de Ville, which is the only car on the Titanic, the only car aboard the Titanic, and was owned by William Carter. Also, this is definitely a mouthful to pronounce. But the top speed of a 1912 Renault Type CB Coupe de Ville is around 35 miles per hour. So even if this car isn't the exact same model, cars back then were very slow. I'm just saying, these types of cars are what you drive in. You could probably, the top speed of them is the speed limit when you're in a school zone. That's pretty much it. You can't drive these on the highway. So there's no way that this car, even the fastest cars back then, they're not as fast as what's shown here. I mean, I can't really tell what speed this is, but it's gotta be at least 80 plus or something. The dialogue in this bit is also extremely incoherent. I just can't figure out what they're saying, and I kind of gave up on that anyway.
Hurry up, you layabouts!
If it hadn't been for you, I would be now in someone else's digestion.
You know there's something you should know, so I'm gonna tell you so. Don't sweat it. Forget it. Enjoy the show.
Alright, it is finally that time, the infamous rapping dog scene. First of all, rap is not a thing until the 1970s. I don't know how the hell he got his hands on basketball shorts, or basketball clothes, I guess. That too, basketball clothes that are fitted to a dog. And this song just seems really forced in. Like, there's no valid reason for this song to be here other than filler. I mean, it makes sense. They're just trying to pad the runtime at this point. The fact that this song emphasizes party time, you could say that it seems insensitive. If I'm playing devil's advocate here, I guess it's supposed to show irony or something. I'm gonna have you guys let me know what you think in the comments. I'm gonna go with, I don't know, them just trying to, I'm not gonna go with, like, you know, them trying to show irony, because to be honest, like, this movie is just too stupid. Anyway, so, like, it's like, yeah, they're trying to show irony. I don't know, I don't think they're smart enough for that. You can also find the scene on YouTube. Honestly, the scene is really bad and it just seems forced in. We also see a guy playing either an acoustic guitar or ukulele here, despite not hearing either of those instruments in the same song. This is just like the one scene from Humshakals where Salman Khan is playing an inaudible electric guitar. Credit to only JC for this clip.
I mean, look at भाई, उनको घंटा फर्क नहीं पड़ता इस बात से कि इस गाने में कहीं भी इलेक्ट्रिक गिटार यूज नहीं हुआ है। धरती पे रूप माँ बाप भाई को गिटार पकड़ना है मतलब पकड़ना है।
I bet you look ravishing in this.
Sounds like something Edward Cullen would say. Holy crap, what if this is Edward Cullen, presuming a different identity? I mean, he probably was alive around then, maybe. I didn't think I'd be making conspiracy theories today, but here we are. Real talk, though, I don't know how he didn't get punched in the face in the scene. Even then, I don't think that's how you, flirt with people. The match that the mouse is using should be closer to his height if we want a realistically sized matchstick.
I was too busy looking for someone. Now that I've found her, I'm not going to let her get away from me again.
Hold me, never let me go. You're all I'll ever need. I don't belong in your world. I could never compete with the young ladies that surround you.
The most wonderful thing about this trip to America is meeting you.
Okay, I know Danny Gonzalez already said this, but man, this dude is once again giving off Edward Cullen vibes. I refuse to believe that this isn't him. This also seems to be paced really badly, because these guys have met once, but Will says that meeting Angelica was the best part of this trip. What if this is love bombing and a toxic relationship waiting to happen? I mean, this does seem to happen, when Edward Cullen is around. Holy crap, what if we have a fanfic of this movie as well? And I'm giving you guys too many ideas. For the love of God, please don't try to make a fanfic on not Twilight, The Legend Goes On. Titanic, The Legend Goes On. Although I can totally imagine that if someone makes a fanfic of this movie, they're just gonna call it Twilight, The Legend Goes On. I don't know, there's like a ship sinking or something. You know what, forget it. I'm giving you guys way too many ideas. There is no way that mouse is able to tip over that chair. Rodents contain many diseases. For the love of God, or even if you don't love God, don't kiss rodents. Can we also talk about how we have this really dramatic montage of Will remembering Angelica, despite meeting her like twice at this point and like barely knowing her? This literally just sounds like it's ripped from the pages of Twilight, despite the first Twilight book releasing in 2005.
Nothing you could tell me could prevent me from loving you.
I killed an entire building full of kids because I was bored. I love you. I can't really do a British accent, so that's the best you're gonna get. Sorry about that, guys. I'm not a voice actor. This cat is not properly playing the trumpet. You need both hands. How do I know this? I played the mellophone during Marching Band. Okay, so first of all, I apologize for the bad lighting and the bad camera. I'm just using my laptop's camera. How you hold a mellophone is, so let's this is my right hand right here. These three fingers right here, you want to use them like this. They go on the valves. Your pinky goes on this little ring right here, these fingers on the valves, and then your thumb goes on the back right here. And then your left hand, I just realized I have to unmirror this later. Your left hand, these four fingers right here are gonna go, let me move my right hand out of the way. These four fingers, they go right here, and then your thumb is like just in the back right here. So then you have to have like it both, use both hands. During Marching Band, it's 10 degrees above parallel, but obviously if you're just in Marching Band, it would probably be like a little bit lower. What I'm basically just trying to tell you right now is that the guy's like clearly like, moving around and dancing with this, and he's doing this one-handed. First of all, even if I'm just keeping it still, and this isn't even like 10 degrees above parallel, this is just like relaxing. I'm pretty like relaxed right now. There's so much pressure on my pinky, because of this pinky ring. Like it is pretty painful, and it's also a lot of pressure right here in the arm. And obviously, because this guy is using one hand and he's moving around a lot, it's going to mess up his tuning. Not his tuning, it's going to mess up his pitches. He's going to have very shaky pitches. I just realized this clip was a little bit longer than it needed to be, but how to hold a mellophone. It's a useful skill, you know, if any of you guys are ever... If I have any young kids watching this who are planning on doing band and planning on doing marching band, this is how you hold a mellophone, guys. James Cameron actually tested this. It took around 30 minutes to release a lifeboat, so there's absolutely no way that the lifeboats descended this fast. By the way, the documentary where Cameron tested this, it's called Titanic 20 Years Later, and it's on Disney+. At least if you're in the US. I don't know if it's available if you're, like, in some other country. One more thing, the lifeboat drill that was supposed to happen on the Titanic was canceled, meaning that everyone had to learn the lifeboats on the fly. So there's absolutely no way that these lifeboats should be releasing that fast. The pacing of the ship sinking is just too fast. I did research this, and the movie was accurate in the timing of the power cut and the split. According to these two sources, the Titanic's power fully cuts out not long before the breakup. It's important to note that these two sources are off by around a minute of each other, but still it is close enough. Back to the movie, Will falls from the Titanic and hits a propeller while doing so. That should be enough to actually break his leg and kill him, or at least prevent him from being able to swim or float, considering that this freezing water would be added pain and make it super hard for you to swim to safety. The splitting of the Titanic also seems slightly off. For more information on it, go to this video and go to the 2 hour and 42 minute mark.
Will you ladies sit down? You're unbalancing the boat.
Do you still have a picture in the locket?
Yes. Ever since my mother put it around my neck as a baby. And then
left you because she was forced to.
Mother? Mommy! Oh, Mommy!
My baby. I hope you understand that neither I nor your father wanted to give you up.
I never thought you'd abandoned me, and the hope that one day I'd find you kept me going like a burning light. Fate is strange, though. I finally found my mother, only to lose William.
Doing? Get down.
So Angelica realizes that Will's nanny is her mom. Why would you put this here? Save it for when they're on the Carpathia, okay? The ship sank like 10 seconds ago. I think you need to like let that sink in for the audience before you throw this bomb on us. Also, this is thrown out of nowhere because it was like mentioned, it was just casually mentioned a couple of times, you know, Angelica finding her mother, and then, you know, we're like, you know, given all these other subplots that we're supposed to be caring about. Like, we just can't remember. Like, I don't know, this really seems thrown out of nowhere because we can hardly remember this whole subplot about Angelica finding her mother. How the hell is this mouse able to throw the rope? And how is it smart enough to recognize a survivor in the water and think to throw the rope? Mice also can't physically throw ropes.
Hello. I told you we'd be together again soon. Sorry I took so long.
How is Will already able to stand up and make out with Angelica 10 seconds after gaining consciousness? He was unconscious in freezing cold water. He is lucky to be alive. He could possibly have hypothermia right now, and there is a good chance that his mobility is affected right now. Rather than getting up in the lifeboat, which probably isn't recommended in any situation, he should get a blanket and sit the hell down.
Doing? Get down.
If anything, I remember I got this source from like the Magic Treehouse Titanic book. So From several years ago, by the way. I don't read Magic Treehouse anymore. But I remember that book ended up saying something about how I think 9 people from the were actually rescued from the water when the lifeboats were out searching for survivors. But 3 of those people actually ended up dying because of hypothermia. I will link that source if I possibly can. I don't know if I'll be able to even find the book anymore. I don't know if I can find like an ebook or anything, but if I find that source, I will link it here. The fact that there's a happily ever after that's ignoring the damage is just horrible, okay? 1,500 people died on this ship and only 705 survived, not to mention that several lifeboats were not even at maximum capacity. By the way, a lot of the damage could have been prevented. If the scheduled lifeboat drill wasn't cancelled, there would be less confusion. If the crew had binoculars, they could have seen the iceberg sooner. If the ship just slowed the hell down, they could have maybe prevented hitting the iceberg. Okay, families were split up, pets died, and people were traumatized. Look, if you want a generic Disney movie with a happy ending, this is the worst possible setting for it. Sure, Titanic 1997 was mostly about the Jack and Rose love story, but it didn't brush over the fact that this was a tragedy. I mean, they even killed off the love interest seriously. We can also see that the characters were visibly shaken up when the ship was sinking and during the aftermath. We can literally see like a third-class mother who puts her kids to sleep knowing that they're going to drown. During the scene where the survivors are on the Carpathia, that hits hard. There's a woman who's freaking out because she can't find her husband, doesn't even know if he's alive. Everyone is distraught, and you can clearly see how Jack's death affected Rose just by looking at her. They don't ignore the damage in 1997. Titanic The Legend Goes On is extremely insensitive as it forgets about the 1,500 deaths. Remember the opening scene where they made this out to be a disaster, the one I told you to remember? Yeah, they seem to have forgotten about that. So about the inaccuracies in the happily ever after, only 3 out of 12 dogs on the Titanic survived. It's confirmed that Fritz, the 2 dalmatians, and the other dogs all survived, which shows an inaccuracy. One more thing to mention is that the mice set up a restaurant with the ship's chef. I don't know if there were health codes back then, but gross. I don't care if there were health codes. That's disgusting. This also seems to be thrown out of nowhere considering that this movie gave little attention to the subplot with the mice and the chef. There were probably like, 2 scenes or something? So here we go. This movie is extremely insensitive. Again, it ignores the fact that the majority of the passengers were killed. I realized that James Cameron's Titanic featured a love story as well as this one, but it remained mostly historically accurate and it actually acknowledged the damage that it caused. To my knowledge, this movie rips off Cinderella, Jack and Rose from James Cameron's Titanic, 101 Dalmatians, and according to the YouTube comments, several other Disney movies. Our stepmother resembles Rose's mom and the Karen from Cinderella, and the stepsisters are basically just carbon copies of the stepsisters from Cinderella. Angelica's relationship with the mice is really similar to Cinderella's relationship with the mice. Angelica's roommate resembles the fairy godmother, and the scene where Angelica and Will are at the party is oddly similar to the ballroom scene in Cinderella. However, the one thing that this scene has on the original from Cinderella is that Angelica is actually made, and we get to see the mess unfold here. Not gonna lie, it was kind of fun to see the drama. Angelica is a third-class passenger, while Will is a first-class passenger. It's basically just Jack and Rose reversed. As for 101 Dalmatians, we have this lady who is very similar to Cruella de Vil in terms of looks and mannerisms. Same thing with these 2 idiots as her lackeys. One thing that James Cameron's Titanic has on this mess is that it's pretty focused. I mean, I guess James Cameron's Titanic has like pretty much everything on this crap because there was actual effort put into the original Titanic. But there aren't a lot of subplots that distract from the main love story in Titanic. But this mess has just way too much going on. There's a subplot with the detective and the Cruella de Vil gang. There's a subplot about the animals. There's a subplot about Will's butler and the officer fighting over the singer. Speaking of the singer, while this is a nice song, this movie milks the absolute shit out of it. What sucks is that the subplot with finding Angelica's mom is casually mentioned just a couple of times. So the reunion of the 2 is just thrown out of nowhere because I forgot all about it by the time they reunite. I'll be honest, I'd rather show a kid the 1997 Titanic than this garbage. Of course, I'd skip past that one scene, but still, this movie is just insensitive, inaccurate, ripping off other movies, and just badly animated, considering that the lips aren't even synced with the dialogue, and I'm pretty sure they've reused a couple of scenes in the songs. They reused, I believe the scenes from Party Time were actually reused in the later song where the mariachi band were playing. Anyway, thank you all so much for watching. Please like, subscribe, and comment, and be sure to tune in for the next video. This video was sponsored by your mom.